Good morning, everyone. It's July 9th, 2026. I'd like to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on the agenda today is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would stand and face the flag with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a great 4th of July, and I hope you enjoy the decorations in this room. Whoever did, thank you very much. It's wonderful. Mr. Wagner is not going to be able to join us today. Mr. Butler, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Martinez, Colonel Roman, and Mr. Steinley are all on remotely. So let me run through and make sure you are all there. Mr. Butler, are you there?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. Mr. Martinez?
Good morning.
Good morning, Colonel Roman?
Good morning.
Good morning, and Mr. Steinley?
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Great. Nice to hear you all. For those board members who are here, I'm going to ask that you make sure your microphone is on and that you please speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. And for board members who are on Zoom, I can't see when you raise your hand, so if you want to speak or ask questions, please just call out your name and I'll acknowledge you to speak. Members of the public on Zoom who wish to address the board, you can use the raise your hand feature. And if members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, which is sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, please press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to mute and unmute. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We'll take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, and that'll be followed by those with raised hands on Zoom. We're now going to move to employee recognitions with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy 250th birthday, 250th birthday to America. Our July 2026 Employee of the Month is Daniel Sartori, Engineering Construction Manager. So Daniel's been out at the EAA for 3 years now, really doing a lot of work to help advance the crown jewel of Everglades restoration. And I've certainly, every time I go out there, I see his smiling face, and I'm very glad to see him. And he has been busy out there. He has been on lots of projects. The EAA Reservoir Construction Village project, he was there. The EAA Stormwater Treatment Area, he was there. The 10 miles of access roads that we put in to help accelerate the EAA Reservoir, he was there managing that project. He's helping with the Miami Canal Conveyance expansion as well. And upcoming, he is going to be the project lead on the seepage pump station associated with EAA Reservoir that we're going to build on behalf of the Corps. And he was there for the inflow pump station. But what he's getting recognized as Employee of the Month is for his project management for the successful completion of the North New River Canal Conveyance expansion. That was basically 11 miles of canal between Lake Okeechobee and the EAA Reservoir that we had to add 200 CFS to. And it is a long linear project, not easy to do because you got to have miles and miles of pumps and miles of work going on in that. And he was there helping that contract and helping accomplish that project throughout the duration. All the debris that was in the canals that would get discovered and have to be dealt with, like cars, things like that. He was there dealing with all the challenges of that canal expansion and still was able to work to deliver it on time and on budget. It's a $100 million project that lasted a year and 4 months, and he got that done. He is a positive leader out there. He is very much great at coordination, great at communication, great at delegation when necessary. He brings all those multiple teams together to really make sure we have success out there at the EAA Reservoir. And he knows that project. He knows it back and forth. I visited with him. He's toured me on the sites. He never makes a wrong turn. Well, actually, no, he did make a wrong turn once. So unfortunately for him, it was with me and a news crew in the car, but he made that wrong turn. 15 minutes later, we got back on track because he knew where to go once he figured out where we were. And I couldn't help. I had to tell that story. But Nevertheless, Daniel is our Employee of the Month. All right. Our July 2026 Team of the Month is the Homestead Field Station Canal Levee Team. So that consists of Adam Ark or Arce? Arce. All right. Brian Furland, Michael Mata, Quincy Moulton, Jeremy Padrick, Tyler Sizemore, Sean Swank, and Yanet Indart. Great team that took care of us down in Homestead. So basically, this was the situation. We had the L31 flowway, part of the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands Project, and what that involves is pumping through a spreader canal to get it out into the marsh and restore the 4,000-ish acres of coastal wetland there. But the issue here was one side of that canal, the levee that protected the private landowners, wasn't built high enough. It had degraded over time, and it needed to be brought up to a higher level so that the canal water could be raised and sent out into the marsh. And we could contract it, we could do all these kind of things, but this team raised their hand and said, you know what, we can fix that levee and make sure we have a good levee to get the full benefits of Biscayne Bay coastal wetlands and protect the private lands to the west of that levee. And so through their effort, they basically had to coordinate the materials, coordinate the supplies, coordinate safety, get all these things done to build this levee. And they did it diligently. And one of the biggest things about building a levee is you have to make sure the material is right. Otherwise, it won't hold the water. And so they saw the quality of material that was being delivered, and they double checked it, pulled the rocks out, the stones, the boulders, those kind of things, the twigs, the branches, all those things. They basically screened every square yard, cubic yard of that material to make sure it was right, placed it, leveled it, got the road put back on top of it, and got it done. This was 2 miles of levee that this team volunteered, voluntold maybe, got out there and fixed that levee, and they saved the district. Got it done. It's fully functional, but they saved the district $450,000 by getting out there and doing it for us. And so we got a functioning Biscayne Bay coastal wetlands down there because of this team, and that is why they're our Team of the Month. Congratulations. That's all I got, Mr. Chair. All right, Mr. Chair. So to celebrate America 250, the district basically put together a time capsule, right? So we could fill it, bury it somewhere here on the district, and 50 years later, the folks that are at the district can open it and see what was going on at the time. And so we had basically a celebration right before July 4th for all the programs to put their items in the time capsule, which you see right here before you. And we have a little video to kind of show that event. In 1976, and I wish that someone had had the idea at that time to put a time capsule on district property so we could open it this year. That would have been a great thing to see, because I remember thinking about the future in 1976 and what we expected 50 years from then, and one thing came true: a walkie-talkie that talks to anybody in the world. We got that done. But we did not get jetpacks. We were gonna get jetpacks to commute to and from work, and that did not happen. I am gonna put in a letter to the 2076 executive director from the 2026 executive director. We've arranged it so all the different programs will put something in.
The first item I have is granite rock from the EAA. I have the STA2 STA coin. And then from our survey section, the final item we have is a survey disc. It is stamped time cap, because that's all the space there is, but it has the year 2026. This is inspiration it was inspired by Lady Justice. It symbolizes Office of Counsel's commitment to supporting district's efforts to provide flood control, water supply, ecosystem restoration to the citizens of South Florida.
We just thought it'd be fun to do 3D printing, which is new-ish now, and to let them see in 50 years what they're doing at that time.
We wanted to include the annual financial comprehensive report. The next item is our budget, our final budget that we submitted for fiscal year 26. All of the EAA reservoir contracts that the district is responsible for.
We are placing in this time capsule something that represents how we plan for the future. It's a map of the advanced planning, data analysis, and modeling tools that guide our work today.
What we're going to share with the folks who are around handling technology in the future would be samples of our technology today. We're going to give it to them on a laptop. And so we have to put instructions on how to plug in a laptop, how to use the keyboard, and why it needs a password.
I have a couple of vintage documents here from the 1950s. Pump operations and instructions for the horizontal pumps at S7. Operating instructions for the Fairbanks Morse opposed piston engine. A parts catalog for the Fairbanks Morse opposed piston engine. And then I have this vintage district sticker, a Freddy patch, a field worker's hat to represent the 700 plus of you guys that spend the day in the heat and work hard in the field.
In the state of Florida, we have some of the most robust and stringent regulations when it comes to water resources. I have a copy of just an environmental resource permit that was issued recently. I'm also representing the Big Cypress Basin for Lisa Keeler and the Big Cypress Basin Board. Lisa Keeler is our basin administrator over there. And they have submitted several pictures, but I want to mention all of the Big Cypress Basin Board members first. Our chairwoman, Charlotte Roman, our vice chair, PJ Smith, member Andy Hill, Michelle Leonard, Michelle McLeod, and Michael Romano all are part of our Big Cypress Basin Board.
Every year, the Association of Local Government Auditors holds a contest, and we won the first place gold award for the contest that year. So what I have to add is the trophy I was presented at the annual conference that year.
What I chose to submit is 2 pictures. The first one is basically a working picture of the control room. So it's got a couple of our CSTs in there that shows the workstations that we're using today, some of the screens. And then the second picture is my team, or part of my team, whoever was in the office yesterday, running a 24/7 shop. We really can't have everybody here at once.
We have the district's technical support document. Every year, we're supposed to submit an annual report. This is how we officially communicate to DEP what our numbers are in a 5-year period. So this will go into the capsule. And we also have an example of one of our monitoring plans. We have a field chain of custody for one of the STAs. We have a couple of items representative of our monitoring efforts.
We have 14 employees that have been here for over 40 years. So that's amazing. And then on the HR technology side, we talk a little bit about AI and how we've started using AI for training purposes and to create more efficiencies within HR.
Freddie, our mascot. We see Freddie when we cross a bridge and it's a district canal. We see him in the front of the pond. We see him everywhere. But really, Freddie is us. All of us are Freddie. And so this represents the district and its people.
A coin, Protect the Everglades District coin, that just to remind everyone that that's what we're here for. The next item is a map showing all the district-owned properties. There's a total of 1.7 million acres that the district has land interest in, fee interest in 800,000 acres, easement interest in 700,000 acres, and partnership interest in the balance of that. So it shows all the lands that we have an interest in, and land comes first when it comes to building projects and doing everything the district needs to do.
On behalf of the communications and public engagement team is the time capsule, and we are going to put in all of the photos of the 80+ events that we have done with Executive Director Drew Bartlett and all of you. And we are going to put in all of the flyers and placemats and maps and all of the documents that we do with all of you every year. So I also want to say to the communications director in 2076 that I hope that you will continue on this tradition and make a time capsule for the staff here to open on America's 350th birthday. But for today, I want to ask all of you to come up here, and we're going to take a big group photo as we celebrate America's 250th birthday. Happy birthday,
There we go. All right, so if board members, if you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, thank you very much. That's a great video, Jill. I love the fact that the eagle was photobombing in the whole thing. There's nothing that makes that better. And as chair of the Water Management District, I hope we are going to do something with this to make sure that it's not going to get wet. So don't bury it. Put it somewhere better.
Flood control.
Yes, from flood control. I have a letter here that that I have written to the chair of the governing board and the governing board of 2076. So I'm going to put that in there, and I have a letter here from Mr. Steinley, which is also to the governing board. So I'll put that in, and I don't think I'll be here to see the opening of this, but I wish them the best, and I hope that everything we're doing today goes well for them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just dropped a note into perhaps future governing board members, but my children just wanted to leave a note in there and hopefully one day they'll look back at where we were today and keep this going.
Well, what a great honor to be a part of this organization. I have a book here of Green Glades West, the history of the Big Cypress, which is put together by my daughter, which is the vice president of our Everglades Foundation. And I'm so proud of Diamond, the next generation, because saving the Everglades, we're really saving ourselves. It's our drinking water, and saving quality of life for future generations. And I've been in this arena since 1973. I can remember sitting with prior governors like Lawton Childs and Graham and Reuben Askew as we've proceeded forward to keep Florida the best state in the United States of America. And it all goes back to quality of life for future generations. And I'm so proud of this organization. Let me tell you, the responsibility that we have for water supply and flood protection and for future generations is amazing. And I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of this and put a little history in here. And I do want to thank all our staff. We're so representative, and Drew, I want to thank you personally. Me and you've been connected for a long time. I remember calling Drew way before South Florida Water Management at midnight, waking him up about moving water south. And here we are today, working together. So it's a great honor. Long live the Everglades, and God bless America.
No one heard a thing Ray said.
We're going to move on now to item number 4, which is agenda revisions. Are there any revisions to the agenda, Molly?
There are none, Mr. Chairman.
Great, and now I'll poll the board members to see if there are any abstentions by any board member, and I'll start with you, Mr. Bergeron. Do you have any abstentions?
No, sir.
I have none. Mr. Spotswood?
No, sir.
Let's see, who's online here? We've got Mr. Butler. Any abstentions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
None, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Martinez. Colonel Roman.
I have none.
Thank you, Mr. Steinley.
None, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Mr. Martinez, we'll come back to you.
I got none, Mr. Chair.
I figured you'd pipe in. Thanks, Charlie. And now we'll move to the Big Cypress Basin Board Report. The chair of the Big Cypress Basin is Colonel Roman. Chair Roman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the Big Cypress Basin Board Summary for July 7th, 2026. We began our meeting with an update from our Basin Administrator, Lisa Keeler, who provided an overview of several key capital projects within the basin. Ms. Keeler congratulated the board members on their most recent ribbon cutting for the new communications tower, which is the basin's largest capital project to date. She also provided updates for wet season preparedness and the new boardwalk at the Bird Workery Swamp. Mr. Michael Weston from the Florida Forest Service followed with a presentation on the land management services underway at the Picayune Strand. Finally, Candy Heater presented the basin's fiscal year 2026-2027 final millage and budget for approval. The board approved the continued millage rate of 0.0978 mills for fiscal year 2026-2027, requesting the governing board to levy ad valorem taxes within the Big Cypress Basin. And the board approves submitting fiscal year 2026-2027 basin budget in the amount of $23,648,374 to the governing board for inclusion in the district's budget. We closed our meeting with technical and staff reports, and our next basin board meeting is scheduled for Friday, August 28th at 11 a.m. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair, subject to yours and the board's questions.
Thank you, Chair Roman. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the Big Cypress Basin? Thanks very much. We'll now approve the minutes for the June 11th, 2026 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? If not, could I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
And Mr. Steinley?
Yes.
Thanks. That passes unanimously, and we'll move back to Mr. Bartlett for the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a few things here. First of all, the governor did sign the state budget for fiscal year 26-27, and that included, again, amazing support for South Florida ecosystem restoration. $665 million for Everglades restoration, including $475 million for authorized SERP projects. And this funding fully funds the state portion, all the remaining state portions of the EAA reservoir project. So the money's in the bank, let's build it. It also includes $95 million for the Central Everglades North project, the ASR, Aquifer Storage and Recovery Well Development Program around Lake Okeechobee, the Blue Shanty Flowway construction, and the Tamiami Trail culverts in the Western Everglades Restoration Project. It also included almost $80 million for Northern Everglades and estuaries protection, including dispersed water management, and almost $40 million to continue construction of the Lower Kissimmee Basin Stormwater Treatment Area. Additionally, the legislature did provide $2.35 billion for land management in the South Florida Water Management District, which is very helpful and we very much appreciate it. So that's the state budget. Also, about a year ago, the governor signed with the Department of the Army an MOU expediting the EAA reservoir project and also setting up the program for the Water Management District to build these SERP projects with federal funds. So the Water Management District, after that was signed, proposed building the seepage pump station associated with the EAA reservoir with federal funds and the Blue Shanty Flowway. And I'm happy to report that the Assistant Secretary of the Army and the Army Corps of Engineers has approved the proposal for us to build those, and they notified Congress that has been approved. And so the next step is for us to sign a new amended agreement, basically setting up the framework for them to provide us the funds so we can get busy constructing the seepage pump station and the Blue Shanty Flowway. And the timing is all lined up for the construction of those two things to line up with the EAA reservoir construction, so it's all available at the same time the EAA reservoir is available. So, good news. Also, as we all know, the Lake Okeechobee remains low, and as we entered the dry season, Rich Virgil and a team at the district put together the low lake level plan, and that has been just, we've been very successful with that, with burning, muck removal, planting, all the things that we've been wanting to do. But since the last board meeting, we kicked off the muck removal for 2 of the structures and lock systems on the north side of Lake Okeechobee. So that was the last muck removal project in the queue, and that is underway right now by the Okeechobee Field Station. Also, as you might recall, we received a proposal for a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, the Southland Reservoir Project, and that is under a unsolicited proposals process. So right now, we've put together the criteria for our review of that proposal, and we're waiting for the proposer to send us the information for that review. They did request another 90-day extension for submitting that information to us. So the new time frame that they might submit it to us is September 25th, 2026, and at which point we'll start our review process. Another thing I'd like to report on is a trend that I started noticing at the end of last year, going into this calendar year, which is a change in consumptive use permit demands, essentially. And what I was noticing is that there was a lot of consumptive use permit renewals that needed a lesser allocation. And a lot of that lesser allocation was because their agricultural practices switching from seepage irrigation to drip irrigation. And if you know how seepage works, it basically you fill the field so that the water is in contact with the roots to grow the plants. With drip, you basically drip the water where the roots are, so you don't need to fill the field with water. And that system of irrigation is a lot more efficient and effective, and we're noticing that these producers are switching over to that just on their own, you know, and that's just based on decades of research and basically industry development to figure out the best way to grow crops. And so we've been noticing that pattern, and so I asked staff to track it. And since January 1st of this year, we've had a number of renewals, about 15, where there was a reduced allocation. And to this point, after June's data, we have 3 billion gallons per year left in our environment because of these reductions. That's a lot of water. And that's not only just more efficient irrigation, but land use practice changes as well. So what we're seeing is that kind of technology basically coming to the forefront and putting less strain and demand on our water resources. So pretty interesting trend. If you're interested, the Python Challenge begins tomorrow. I'm sure, Mr. Bergeron, you've registered, so we'll look forward to seeing you out there.
I'll be there.
Okay, very good. So it goes from July 10th to 19th, and we wish the best of luck to all the participants. And the last thing I have is I want to introduce someone to you. So you might recall that Jill Creech retired last month. She was head of our regulatory division, and we have brought in a new regulatory division director. Her name is Serena Davila, and she comes from DEP. She used to run the Southeast District for DEP, and now she runs the Water Management District regulatory program for us. And I'd love to invite her up here to introduce herself. Serena?
Good morning, governing board members. It's a pleasure to be here. As Drew mentioned, my name is Serena Davila. I come from the Department of Environmental Protection, where I served for 18 years. This great state of Florida. I'm very excited to be here and learn more about the Water Management District and all of the contributions you guys make, or we make actually now. And if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Pleasure.
On our agenda, this comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items. Public comment for consent agenda item is 12 on the agenda, and public comment for discussion will be heard after the presentation. The public did have an opportunity to provide written comments prior to this meeting, and we did not receive any e-comment. Are there general public comments now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with Gil Smart, followed by Newton Cook.
Morning, governing board members. My name is Gil Smart. I'm policy director with Friends of the Everglades, founded in 1969 by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and based in Stewart. To begin with, we're interested to hear the discussion of budget matters today, and we're particularly interested in some frank talk about what happens if the property tax referendum passes, because from the numbers we've seen, if it passes, we're not talking about a haircut, we're talking about a beheading. We're also, of course, keeping a close eye on Lake O water levels, particularly as they've dipped below the water shortage management band. It's concerning news for everyone, of course. But to an extent, it's a product of how we manage water in South Florida. There's always a bit of a crapshoot, a roll of a dice as part of it. The weather's a key variable, of course, but then you had recovery operations dumping billions of gallons of water to the northern estuaries when they didn't need it. And now for months, the Caloosahatchee can't get enough when it does need it. The Everglades and Florida Bay desperately need more fresh, clean water, even as the vast sugar fields south of the lake have gotten all they need. The infrastructure projects now underway are designed to address all this, and they will, to a point, because for all the money already spent, for all the millions, hundreds of millions included in the recently signed state budget, we know we're going to need more land to hold and clean more water. There's a line in today's discussion agenda noting that, quote, over the last 7 years, more water is moving through the Everglades, salinity levels in Florida Bay have improved, and harmful estuary discharges from Lake Okeechobee are down dramatically. That's obviously good news. But we must not be satisfied with discharges that are, quote, down dramatically. We need them to end. We can't be satisfied with more water moving through the Everglades. We need enough water moving through the Everglades. Friends of the Everglades continues to pursue our Rescue the River of Grass initiative, advocating for the acquisition of 100,000 additional acres south of Lake O to resolve these issues and more. We welcome any and all opportunities to speak with you as a board or individually about this. We're making progress, there is no doubt, but let's keep our eyes on the prize. The solution here is not more water moving through the Everglades, it's enough water. The solution is finish the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Next, we'll hear from Newton Cook, followed by Ben Olson.
Thank you. Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. We're just looking at the celebration of 250 years. Well, I figured out that United Waterfowlers of Florida is 25 years old this year. So that's a pretty good mark for a small little duck hunting group in Florida. As usual, I'm complaining about not enough burns. Haven't seen any smoke over the lake. What's going on here? We got a dry period. Great opportunity. Nada. Couple, but overall, nada. And I hope the district is burning somewhere. I hope. One of the best places we have here is Dupree. And you know why Dupree is what it is? Because they burn it. It's an incredible place. You need to go there and look at it. The other thing is spraying. It's become a very big situation. We've got a guy running for Commissioner of Agriculture, and I keep trying to tell him he don't have anything to do with spraying. You know, it's the FWC and it's the water management districts, but we have a big problem in Florida. We're killing our lakes. We're just killing them. It's just sad to see when you're out there. Now, you got to have spraying. I totally understand we have to have some spraying, but it's way, way beyond what we need today. And I keep recommending we just simply cut the budget 50%, and you'll be shocked at how they'll be able to do what needs to be done, and it'll save us a lot of millions of dollars a year. On the lake, muck removal. Here we have the best opportunity since 2005, I think, or 4, to get the muck out of the lake. How many truckloads have been scraped up? Where are the different methods to remove the muck out of the lake when it's low? Nada. A couple of demonstrations are going on, but by the time they get even talked about, the lake will be back up. We're already working on planning for Wounded Warrior and Youth Duck Hunts. I just want to say thanks, because without your staff, we couldn't make them happen. EAA2 STA public access. Okay, we got 6,000 acres of STA sitting there, just sitting there. Public needs access. Would be a great place to duck hunt this year. We had a great recreation turnout at the meeting the other day. Bishop led that meeting and did a wonderful job. There's only been 3 people do that job until Bishop. Rob Barton, some might remember him, David Lefkoe, myself, and now Bishop. And the district just does wonderful things, make that meeting work.
Please wrap up your comments.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next, we'll hear from Ben Olson. Then we'll move over to our virtual participants with their hands raised.
Good morning, Governing Board, staff, and Executive Director Bartlett. I am so happy to inform you and the public that we are moving forward with the Land Steward meeting for what is hopefully the first of many meetings. Staff are working on dates currently, and it looks like we're targeting early September. Normally this process takes months on end to set up 4 or 5 separate meetings of all the different groups of stakeholders, but I am hopeful that the land stewards of the West Feeder Basin and the L28 Gap can all sit at the table together to solve the issues at hand in the Feeder Canal Basin Water Quality Program so that we ensure we get work right in a streamlined, transparent fashion. I was thinking back on the first landowner meeting in Immokalee in August 2022 this past month, how my family got a letter in the mail for it the night before the meeting occurred, and then we came to find out we were at risk of flowage easements while our neighbors were facing eminent domain. Last month, I put in a FOIA request with the Army Corps to get a copy of the video of that meeting because it kind of turned into a riot. But that night, just shy of 4 years ago now, I went back to my property after that meeting. I sat at my front gate for what must have been 30 minutes watching a couple dozen hogs rooting right inside the gate as the sun set behind me. I know I'm not misremembering that either because by happenstance I took a couple photos of them and they're invasive, but I do love to watch them root around sometimes. But as I stood there, all that was going through my head was dread. Dread that all this beauty and what I and they both call home was going to be flooded out. Governing board, no one in this state should ever have to face a taking like this again, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure the dread I felt that night is not experienced by any other landowners in the Everglades restoration footprint. My hope is that these land steward meetings serve as a vanguard for the next generation of Everglades restoration. Having knowledgeable experts in each project footprint be brought in to volunteer their expertise to ensure that we get these projects correct. No more spending years and millions of dollars before we bring in the locals. This land steward meeting will, I'm sure, have disagreements. Hopefully there will not be contention, but sometimes contention is necessary. But what I do know, though, is this. Everglades restoration needs a revitalization through transparency and openness with the public. There needs to be a check and balance on what is said behind the scenes compared to being what's being said in meetings. And there needs to be a mechanism for engaged stakeholders, be it private landowners or members of the public that utilize our public lands, to participate more than just a few minutes each month. This land steward meeting will be the start of that, and I will continue to push to bring this concept wide with Everglades restoration through an accountability subgroup under the Everglades Task Force. Very briefly, the FWC and I are still working out the specifics of the feeder basin panther monitoring concept that I've been working on. It's looking like we will have a new upload portal specific to the West Feeder Basin so that we can establish it's not just Olson Ranch with a disproportionate amount of big cats in it. Some of the landowners are already cameraed up and ready to go. But for the rest of them, I'm just looking for extra funds and extra cameras. So if I may take a moment to ask, using this time, if any of the nonprofits are listening and interested in helping track some panthers, do reach out to me. We'll figure it out either way, but I will not say no to the help. I just really want to say thank you guys for facilitating this meeting. It really will make a real difference, and I appreciate all of you. I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Next, we'll move over to our virtual participants, starting with Nick Trenchina, followed by Ryan Rossi. Mr. Trenchina?
Yes.
We hear you now.
Good morning. So I'm the contract holder for the district. I operate the boat locks, and I have some concerns, and I've been trying to solve them with management and procurement, but they're not cooperating with me. My biggest concern is the insurance. The district says I need commercial insurance to operate the boat locks, but you can't buy that insurance. They require marine insurance, which is much more expensive. And I asked for mediation, and I've been denied mediation over 2 times already. And my insurance, my marine insurance, expires October 18th. And after that, I won't be able to afford it anymore because of the budget increase and the minimum wage. I won't have enough money to pay my bills and operate the boat locks. So I tried to explain that to the district, and they just don't want to cooperate and help me pay the bills. This marine insurance is like 30 times more than the regular commercial insurance, but the commercial insurance won't cover the public if they get injured in a boat lock. And that's my dilemma.
Thank you, Mr. Trenchina. We'll hear next from Ryan Rossi, followed by Diamond Bergeron.
Good morning, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Good morning, Ryan Rossi with the South Florida Water Coalition. I apologize for my voice, I'm fighting a bad cold. But I did want to comment this morning, as summer moves along, the prolonged drought conditions we've been experiencing for months continue to serve, I think, as a powerful reminder that our water supply can never be taken for granted. Across South Florida right now, scorching hot days, below average rainfall, and declining water levels are placing increasing pressure on our water management system. These conditions underscore the importance of protecting every component of our regional water supply, whether it's talking about the Everglades, our aquifers, canals, and certainly Lake Okeechobee, which has gotten attention recently. Recent recovery operations at the lake are taking advantage of the low water levels to restore critical habitat and strengthen the lake's long-term ecological health. And while those efforts, I think, are important investments in the future, I think they also highlight how vulnerable our water resources become during these extended dry periods like we've been experiencing. For local utilities, these conditions are more often an environmental concern. They are an operational challenge. They continue to have to work to provide safe, reliable drinking water while carefully managing limited supplies and meeting growing demand, and planning for increasingly unpredictable weather patterns. Water conservation, continued investment in resilient infrastructure, science-based water management, and support for Everglades restoration are all essential to safeguarding our future. But it's also important to remind ourselves that Everglades restoration was predicated on protecting existing legal water users' water supply and providing additional water supply to meet future demands. I think that's very important. So just to close this out, everything we do today is also what we're doing to prepare for tomorrow and ensuring the future generations can inherit a region with a secure, sustainable, and resilient supply. And that responsibility, I think, belongs to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Next, we'll hear from Diamond Bergeron, followed by Don DeMott.
Good morning. This is Diamond Bergeron speaking on behalf of the Bergeron Everglades Foundation and as a landowner within the WERP footprint. I just want to sincerely thank Ben Butler for calling for a meeting at the last governing board meeting to be scheduled with all WERP stakeholders within the West Feeder Basin area. I've looked forward to the opportunity to sit down with my neighbors, the tribes, and the district to work together toward getting this project right for the environment. This will be the first time that we're all coming together in this way, and I believe that it's an important and the most meaningful step forward. I also want to thank the staff for their efforts in helping make this meeting happen and for ensuring that all landowners and stakeholders have the opportunity to be included and participate in the process. Thank you as well to John Madden for facilitating the meeting and for making sure that everyone is able to attend. We are extremely grateful for the continued effort to keep stakeholders engaged, heard, and involved as WERP moves forward. And I also want to share how honored I am that my book on Greenglades West was included in the time capsule. That was a great surprise. It will be opened 50 years from now, which means I will be 84 years old, and God willing, I'll still be standing in your room talking about how much I love the Everglades. Thank you, Dad, for including that. That was really great. Greenglades West is a place that means so much to me and so much to my family, so it means a lot to know that a piece of its story will be preserved for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bergeron. Next, we'll hear from Don DeMott, followed by Mark Perry. We'll hear, actually, yes, Mr. DeMott, please unmute your mic. Mr. DeMott lowered his hand. We'll hear next from Mark Perry. Please unmute Mr. Perry. Please unmute your mic. Must be having some technical, oh, Mr. Perry?
Yes, is that okay?
We hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry. I am remote because I'm in Texas currently, but I appreciate the governing board kind of recognizing the history of the Water Management District and putting it in time capsule and so forth. That you have an incredible staff, incredible work that you as governing board have been doing over these past several years, and knowing it for the last 48 years, I've seen a lot of changes, of course, over the time, but we're focused now on getting the momentum going. It's good to hear from Executive Director Bartlett about the budget and the state budget putting forward the millions that we need for Everglades restoration and continuing forward in that way. It also brings to mind, of course, the efforts we're putting on Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program, those three important watersheds, the Okeechobee, St. Lucie, and Caloosahatchee watersheds, and how we have to get the water right within those in order to quantity, quality, timing, and distribution. It's important for us to really kind of consider how, the responsibility is, I know the three agencies involved, but this responsibility with the district is really key. And you all have monitored the system. You're monitoring how much pollution loading is coming from each of the subbasins, and we really need to take responsibility as we do through your responsibility and authority through permitting. I was glad to hear about Director Bartlett talking about the consumptive use permits and how we're getting to less of that. But there's also permits like the Everglades Works of the District permits, which you regulate, and other regulatory things that come into the works of the district from each of these watersheds. It's important that we get those under control and right before those discharges go into these important water bodies, such as Lake Okeechobee and the estuaries and the Everglades. So I urge you to take that responsibility full on for the next 50 years or plus, and let's get the water right within these watersheds, stop the pollution from coming into these water bodies, and we'll watch them recover as we all want to happen in the future. But thank you for all your hard work, and let's continue that momentum and continue on into the next 50 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment for this item.
Well, thanks very much to you all for your comments. We appreciate them. We're going to go to board comment now, and I'll start with Mr. Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, happy birthday, America. 250 years, and I was sitting there just thinking that, and I hate to say this because I'm telling my age, that I've lived through nearly 1/3 of America. Seen an awful lot of changes in my life. I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about the way I grew up prior to flood protection, prior to the boom of Florida. Remembering we had a pitcher pump on the back porch and an outhouse. It's hard to believe. And entered the Everglades when I was 3 years old with a grandfather that was a game warden. And boy, my eyes seen the most beautiful God's landscaping, the wildlife and the sunsets, and how blessed am I here to be a board member, and how honored I am to be with our staff, to be a part of a quality of life for Florida for future generations. Want to thank the governor, want to thank our legislators that has given us the ability to proceed forward on Everglades restoration, which is the largest environmental restoration ever attempted in the history of the world. And I love this state. I know we all do. And how blessed are we to be in Florida. We've got a lot of work on our hands. I want to thank all our stakeholders. I think that as we work together and communicate, we come up with better solutions as we continue to make sure that we're truly restoring as we go forward of one of the natural wonders of the world. Little update on the Tamiami Trail. We're proceeding to remove all of the barriers that will allow us to move 2.5 million to 3 million acre feet of water, which we started in 2000, 26 years ago. And we're getting very close, and I want to compliment our staff and Drew, the critical path schedules you've put together, all of the meetings that we've had over the last few years with all of our federal partners. And the Tamiami Trail should be completed in the next few months. That's not an obstacle no more. But as Drew and our staff is working forward to make sure that water moves south for the first time since 1915, when we started across and cut the Everglades in half and stopped the natural flow by gravity. So this is extremely exciting. I do want to thank our staff for moving forward west of the L-28 across the Tamiami Trail and Loop Road. I think we will be in a position, I think, Drew, to award those projects by the first of the year. Is that my understanding? And, you know, I focus a lot on this, and it sounds like maybe I'm showing partiality a certain portion of Everglades restoration, but I want everyone to understand that when the Tamiami Trail is done and water is equalized with shared adversity across this global system from Boggy Creek through the Kissimmee River floodplains to the heart of the Everglades, the lake, the Central Everglades, Everglades National Park, Big Cypress, Fakahatchee, Picayune, Panther Refuge. This benefits the global system when we equalize these water levels and we don't have cumulative backups in the Central Everglades and Big Cypress and Fakahatchee and Picayune and Panther Refuge, and quantity of water greater than naturals going out the Caloosahatchee, the St. Lucie, in the Indian River Lagoon. We're going to see the biggest benefit when we get water moving beyond the Tamiami Trail, the biggest benefit we've seen over 25 years. So that's why I talk so much about completing the Tamiami Trail. And I want to thank our staff. We're moving forward. We're working with our federal partners to make sure that happens. On Western Everglades, I want to say that that's an extremely important part of Everglades restoration. Takes in the Big Cypress Preserve. I will be abstaining from voting on that, but under the rules and regulations I'm governed, I'm allowed to voice my opinion. That particular area, the Big Cypress, is a rain-driven system, and we have to keep that in mind as we go forward. And as we go forward, as Ben Olson said, we need to make sure that we do everything for the tribes on their reservation and our public lands and the private Everglades lands. We're all connected together as we model that area and respect that it's a rain-driven system. So I apologize for being so long-winded, but we got a lot of good things going on. And I want to say again, thank all our stakeholders. They're a very, very big part of, I really admire all of them that are in this arena with us. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Spotswood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ron, thank you. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for everything you continue to do. We really appreciate your input and history and knowledge of the system. It is very helpful. Also wanted to take a minute to thank the governor and legislature for this year's budget and support. We'll also note that we've got some budget discussions and some I won't say issues, but obstacles and challenges to overcome and just figure out how to adapt. And our staff has proven time and time again. And Drew, thank you for leading us through that. I have no doubt that we'll figure out how to continue to execute the mission that we need to. With that, happy birthday, America! 250 years, really incredible. Looking forward to hopefully one day being around to open that time capsule. And to the board members that aren't here, thank y'all.
Thanks, Mr. Spotswood. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be brief this morning. Joining my other board members, happy birthday, America. Happy 250. And staff, thank y'all for Drew and crew. Jill, thank y'all for putting the time capsule together. That was a great event. It looked like y'all had celebrating America's 250. And wish I could be there to help celebrate in person today. But the only other thing I've got, just talking Lake Okeechobee. I want to give a shout out to Mike Elfenbein and crew, Florida Airboaters, and all the different clubs that Mike helped organize a group of folks, group of leaders out on Lake Okeechobee to take a look at current conditions and talk about the future. I appreciate that, getting to be involved with that discussion. I'll tell you, Lake Okeechobee looked good out there as we put in at Okeechobee and went south. Boy, the SAV looked good. Of course, the lake is low right now. Hopefully Mother Nature is going to work with us, and look forward to seeing the outcome. Look forward to seeing the SAV survey as it comes out here in the next couple of months. But just wanted to say thank you to everybody that participated in that and everybody who has helped to look out for Lake Okeechobee. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any comments right now, but again, thank you for the staff for putting together such a great celebration for our 250th, and happy birthday, America.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Martinez.
No comments, Mr. Chair. Echoing everybody's happy birthday, USA. Greatest country in the world.
Thanks, Mr. Martinez. Colonel Rowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say happy birthday to America 250, and what a great video. It was so terrific to see all of the team members in the district, all the professionals to make this organization work. And that was really well done. And so thank you to the whole communications team and Jill for pulling that all together. That was great. It was wonderful to see all the smiles. A couple of things. I attended the Cattlemen's Convention here in Marco Island recently, and I attended the Environmental Committee meeting. And I wanted to thank Ray Palmer and Jennifer Edwards, who continues to work and keeping a open line of communication on the cattle lease conversation. And we really had a great session on that, and we continue to make progress. The ranchers are really an important partner for the district, both in our land management efforts and also, for our dispersed water management project opportunities. So it was great to see so many and to have some positive conversations during that time together. So thank you, everyone. Also, Drew, that was great news in your report about the approval for the money, the federal funds, to be able to, the district to be able to build the seepage pump station at Lushanny Flowway. I mean, it's just been a year since that landmark agreement was signed with the Department of the Army and the state of Florida. The governor was here on Marco Island at the conference and to actually sign it. And some of us were able to attend, and what an honor. And that is just a pivotal agreement that has launched some accelerated milestones for the EAA. And I think when we look back in history, we're going to see that moment when that agreement was signed is something that was really, really instrumental in us to be able to get things done in a more efficient and effective manner. So that was good news, Drew, and I'm looking forward to getting that reservoir done and getting that online in the future. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Colonel Roman. Mr. Steinley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd also say, Ron, it's so meaningful to hear your history, and as I've said before, it's really invaluable to have your experience on the board. By the way, I'm rereading A Land Remembered, guys. I'd highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't. And a lot of what we are celebrating on the 250th is sort of encapsulated on a local Florida level in that book. It's just such a great history of Florida. I wanted to, I met with Drew, Rory Feeney, and Leroy Rogers a few weeks ago to speak about herbicide use. We talk about it often, and obviously we get reports from staff on methods and what we're working on. We hear a lot of feedback from stakeholders like Newton today, who's been a constant sort of resource in terms of what is happening in the field. And I think among all of us, there's consensus that we want to find ways to reduce herbicide use, but also a recognition that it continues to be an important tool that we have in managing these invasive species, along with obviously mechanical, and there's been great progress in biological, fire maintenance, etc. So anyways, I wanted to connect with them, get an update, and I think the objective was to discuss, ways we can continue to improve our results. I want to thank the staff for the work that they've already done and the results. I think I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think between the last report we have between 2019 and 24, we, the district, and maybe other agencies, but I know the district has made a 40% reduction in the amount applied per acre. So we're making progress. We talked about two sort of action items. One was to have more regular formal updates. I suggested, I think, Drew, every 2 years, where we have an opportunity to get the latest reports, talk about it, hear feedback from the public, open it up for discussion. I think that's important, especially with the amount of feedback we just get unsolicited on this, importantly. And of course, the primary goal in this whole thing is to reduce use. And you simply do that by only applying on the invasives and not on other vegetation or the surrounding waters. Sounds simple, but it's not. I'm really excited. We talked about, how technology can really help as it advances. I'm really excited about the way that AI and drone technology can be used in the future. In terms of IDing, the precise areas and species. We have a little bit of advancement there. It's nowhere near where I would expect it to be. So what we talked about was sort of similar to what the DEP and other government agencies have in their innovative technology programs in Florida, where they incentivize and support new solutions through technology. I wanted to make sort of an informal call to the private sector that the district has need and Florida has need for new technologies that will, I think, really help us solve this problem and improve, how we use herbicides through new technologies, precision drone mapping, plant IDs. Think about if there's a way to remotely apply herbicide through drones in hard to get to areas where the machine actually identifies the specific plant and can control the specific amount of output. I just think that this is something that we should see in the next couple of years, not decade. So obviously, if we treat only the right plants with the right amount of herbicide, we know we're doing all we can. So if there are folks, and I know there are, that can sort of share with us some new ideas and technology that look promising and are cost effective, I know you'd have a great customer. I can't guarantee it, obviously, but I know you'd have a great customer in the district. That's what I wanted to say, Mr. Chair. I probably just will have flooded somebody's email at the district with some ideas, but I think it's all worthwhile. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mr. Steinley. I appreciate your comments. I'd like to thank the governor also for this last budget. We're now in the state's new fiscal year, and the governor ran through the tape, and I knew he would. Never had any doubt about that, and he's been very good to us at the district, and we're reaping the rewards, and we're staying busy as a result, and so I thank him for that. As our 250th anniversary, it's so exciting. I remember the bicentennial drill. I was glad to hear you say that. I guess we're both old, and I remember it really well, and I don't know why, but I do, and I just remember being so excited as a kid about the future and about this country and just everything this country has to offer, and it's not lost on me that both Mr. Spotswood and Mr. Bergeron mentioned their children when they were putting things into the time capsule, because that's really what it's about. I mean, that's the reason we're doing everything we're doing here. It's for future generations, and I'm so glad that those who came before us were doing it for us, so that we're where we are today. And I hope that what we're doing is paving the way for them and our kids. And I hope my kids maybe can come to the opening of that thing and see what's in it, if you keep it dry. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I've seen others that weren't. I'd also like to wish Jill Creech a happy retirement and welcome Serena on board. It's great to have you here. And we'll move now to consent. And is there any board member who wants to move any consent agenda to discussion? Hearing none, is there any public comment on consent?
We have none, Mr. Chair. Oh,
right.
Let me check online, one moment. We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion for Mr. Spotswood, a second for Mr. Bergeron to approve the consent agendas, item 14 to 18. Is there further discussion? If not, I'm going to call that question. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinley?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Thanks very much. We'll move now to discussion, and we're going to talk about our budget development for transitioning from fiscal year 25-26 to the new fiscal year. Before you start, I do want to say thanks to Candy for putting the financial report in there. They're going to see the budget and the financial report and think it was pretty quaint, I think. 25 years, or 50 years.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the budget development for the fiscal year 26-27 budget. And I know there's a lot of public discussion on the referendum for homestead exemptions. This is not that discussion. This is because that will not, if it passes, affect this budget this fiscal year, this coming fiscal year. If it does pass, it would be the following fiscal year, and those decisions would have to be made next summer, not at this time right here. So this is really about looking at our budget for fiscal year 26-27 and how we make that transition given all the new infrastructure we have and some of the challenges we have from our past. So I'm going to get into it. And really what I want to do first is kind of honestly reflect on the amazing run we've had under Governor DeSantis and projects that have been completed that we have the benefit of implementing, that we have the benefit of actually operating and providing good, solid returns on those investments for Florida. And that, of course, began early on in his administration with the completion of the Kissimmee River restoration. Here we have another 100,000 acres of floodplain up in the Lake Okeechobee watershed. Looking forward to not only the ecosystem benefits from that, but the water quality benefits from that and the recreational benefits from it. Right now, we're doing the ecological monitoring of it, and it's really amazing. Zach reported on it last board meeting, and here we are being able to observe the benefits of Kissimmee River restoration. And that's not how it used to look, right? There's a wiggle. And you can see the old canal in this final shot here in the film where it used to be, and you have the returning river from the restoration efforts. So very exciting. That is now operational. And of course, we have the East Reservoir, the St. Lucie Reservoir on the C-44 Canal, east of Lake Okeechobee, which is in operational testing, but honestly, we're getting the benefits from this reservoir. Since it's been online, all last wet season, no water left the C-44 Canal harmfully to the St. Lucie River. In fact, since this reservoir has been online and its associated 6,000 acre stormwater treatment area, not a drop has left the C-44 to the St. Lucie estuary except under hurricane circumstances. Ian and Milton left a ban, so there was some discharges because it was overwhelmed, but the duration of that discharge was cut by a third, right? So this works, right? And that's the exciting part. It's operational, we're using it, and it's working. And just recently, we've of course brought online the C-43 reservoir, massive 10,000 acre reservoir. It'll hold 170,000 acre feet of water. And this is in its initial fill right now, honestly waiting for water so we can fill it. But just like the C-44 reservoir, as we fill and as we test this C-43 reservoir, we will be able to see those benefits for the Caloosahatchee estuary. In fact, the fill plan right now, we're just waiting for those estuary discharges to get to harmful levels, to actually fill the reservoir, because then we will take it below harmful levels, right? So it's we can get benefits with this reservoir, and it is now ready to deliver those benefits in a testing phase. Look at it go. And of course, we have finished building many, many stormwater treatment areas, and we continue to build them. Right now, when we started under Governor DeSantis, we were still building the restoration strategies to put clean water in the Everglades, but we started and finished this EAA reservoir stormwater treatment area. So it is there and available. I think we just got the operational plan, the interim operational plan approved by the Corps, so we can use it. And not only that, but we also have we did finish under this term the Lakeside Ranch STA, the final component there, and all of the restoration strategies, STAs, and associated flow equalization basin. In total, if you take all of our STAs and FEBs, we have over 100,000 acres of these wetland treatment systems, which not only provide great benefits for water quality, but recreational opportunities, whether it's bird watching, fishing, or hunting. So we got that done. Uncorking Tamiami Trail, we started and finished removing old Tamiami Trail, and we've been working with DOT to complement the bridges that were finished by raising the road. In July, DOT tells us that they'll shift all the traffic over to the new road, so we'll have benefits of that raised road. And then, of course, we started and finished the seepage wall so that we never have to cut off flows into Everglades National Park again. We've been able to see that in action. And here you have on the People side is dry, and on the Everglades side is wet. It used to not look like that, but with this seepage wall, it absolutely does. And let's not forget, we finished the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. Now, 55,000 acres of restored wetland. You see the filled canals. We have the new pump stations we've been able to use. We're just again waiting for water so that we can look like a completed wetland. It's been raining in the southwest coast, but not sure how much that's delivered to Picayune Strand yet. But this is another situation where you had water going where it wasn't supposed to go, and now you're having it here. This was ditched and drained. A lot of exotics moved in, so the next phase of getting this restored is the exotics removal, and that is a big effort that we're currently in the middle of doing on Picayune Strand. And then, of course, we finished the Biscayne Bay coastal wetlands. Deering Estates was first out of the chute, but this is Cutler Bay, and this is the new pump station that we finished. It's pumping water off the canal to the spreader, which restores the marsh area associated with Biscayne Bay. And so it takes the water that would normally harmfully go out and sends it to the coastal wetlands. This is down on the L31 flowway. There's that berm that we had to repair. And this is Deering Estates, which has been online for a number of years. So that's the post-restoration view of these restored wetlands, which is really iconic and incredible. So we've gotten a lot done. And with the signing of the MOA last year, this is what we're gonna have this built out, right? In 3 years with the EAA reservoir and the Blue Shanty flowway completed. We've completed the wetlands to put clean water in the Everglades, and we've completed the east and west reservoir and Kissimmee restoration, right? So 3 years from now, at the end of 2029, we'll have this sort of whole vision sort of completed and have the ability to use it. So it's very exciting times with a retrofitted system. So now let's move into budget development after having had that reflection. So we're 76 years old, not 250, at the Water Management District. And so because we're that old, we do have an old flood control system, which was authorized with the 2 bottom lines, with the Herbert Hoover Dike built in the 30s, and the Central and South Florida flood control system built in the 50s and 60s. And then ultimately we had Everglades Restoration, which basically retrofitted that flood control system to make it better for South Florida and South Florida's ecosystem. And then of course we've had a lot of changes in South Florida. So what we want to do is we want to take this time, we want to reflect on all the great infrastructure we've added that will provide amazing benefits to South Florida, and then build the budget that kind of contemplates not only the operation of that flood control system and that new infrastructure, but also the taking care of the old infrastructure and adapting the old infrastructure. But I want to start with kind of a reminder. We are at the South Florida Water Management extremely efficient and extremely effective. We are doing more with less at the South Florida Water Management District. So this is over the last 16 years, our operation, even with inflation, we have been able to keep our expenses way down while increasing our responsibilities just through innovation and efficiency here at the South Florida Water Management District. And so you can see, this is a nice graphic, but you can see it is not drawn to scale. And all you have to do is look at that construction contract management, which has gone up over that decade and a half, 600%. So that line is not drawn to scale. Engineers would, but I didn't. So anyway, very efficient. So let's start with that as a premise. It's also captured in our FTE counts. So we had, over time, we've been able to keep our FTE counts essentially flat. In fact, since the 15-year period, we've reduced that FTE count. So we've been, and we're maintaining that trend as we start to build out our 26-27 budget. Just making sure the government is what it needs to be. It's the right size. But even with that, so we're efficient, we're effective. Let's set that as a premise. Our infrastructure is a lot right now. It is absolutely a lot. We usually used to say like 2,100 miles of canals. That's gone up. The levees have gone up. It's all, gone up. A lot of this is embodied in all the information. See, the bottom line is the monitoring stations, the information and infrastructure we need to put clean water in the Everglades through STAs, and to store water around our system versus discharge it harmfully. So we have a lot more of this infrastructure. And this is the counts. This does not include miles of canals, but it includes all the other impoundments, dams, levees, and structures, pump stations, all of that. And so you've seen over time that has gone up and that kind of expanded, and we have a lot of infrastructure here at the South Florida Water Management to take care of. And part of taking care of that infrastructure is our budget. So this is where I start breaking down numbers. So just write down, we collect, next year we're projecting to collect $419 million in ad valorem dollars. So from the communities of South Florida. So I have $419 million we're looking to collect, and about $200 million of that is for staff, right? Staff benefits, everything associated with having staff. And so what we're looking at is the balance of that and all the expenses that goes towards. And so what you have here at the bottom is basically our energy budget, right? And how that's changed over time. And the things that we have built is a lot more electric pump stations, and the structures in the old pump stations, the structures don't take a lot of electricity. The old pump stations often run on fuel, but the new ones are power. And as you've experienced, power costs have gone up, but also power demand of the district. So our energy budget alone, out of the remainder of that ad valorem, we're projecting 17.8 to pay for that energy budget. A lot of it depends on how much it rains, right? So let's hope it doesn't rain a lot.
Sorry, Drew. What's that unusual drop 24, 25?
Dry conditions. So
Gotcha.
and you can see in 23, 24, and 24, 25, that is when the state the governor has been asking to deal with our operational budget. Has been asking for assistance from the state legislature. And you can see there was one year we did get funds to help with this, and that was in basically the state fiscal year spans 23, 24, and 24, 25. So we're able to supplement some of this operational cost with state dollars. So you'll see that in other graphs. All right, so this is basically, we have what we call new works, all the new things that we put online, and we can budget separately for that, because we need to do it for cost accounting with the core and all kinds of reasons. So we have separated out how much, basically, and this does not include personnel budget. This is just all the other things associated with it, mowing contracts, supplies, power and energy, all those kind of things. Is kind of embedded in this new works type budget. So we are budgeting out of the remainder of, you take the personnel costs away, how much the new operations cost us, right? So we do have new infrastructure. We get the benefit of operating it, right? So that's very exciting. We have to budget for it. So that's just something we need to do. So we layer that on. And then this is where I transition into the old infrastructure. So we do maintain, and the field station staff do a great job of maintaining our flood control infrastructure, whether it's canal, levee, structures, pump stations. They're out there all the time, making sure that all these things continue to work. And when you think about I talked about a lot of the hard infrastructure, but we do have a lot of nature-based infrastructure, and that's the 100,000 acres of STAs and FEBs, which we have to do plant management and maintenance within those FEBs, and STAs. And so there's a lot of land management activities that go on in there. Setting aside STAs, we have land management of about 1 million acres of conservation land as well. So that's all in there. But what we're really thinking about right now is the aging flood control infrastructure. We were founded as a flood control agency, and it was built out as a flood control agency. And so now we're starting to think about how we rebuild and adapt that flood control infrastructure. This is our structure inspection program. And you can see over time that we've had to, because of budget constraints, defer some of the maintenance on some of our flood control infrastructure. So what you see is these are the more concerning inspections that need to be addressed, And so you see the C3s and the C4s, and C4s are ones that need to be addressed. Now, each of these is a finding at a structure, and so you can go to a structure and address that one finding, but it may not capture the entirety of a structure needing to get rebuilt. And so this has gone up over time. And so what we're thinking about is how do we address this emerging problem? We're addressing operating the new infrastructure. We're not going to not operate that for the benefit of South Florida, but what do we do about the old infrastructure? And here's an example of not only rebuilding, but also adapting. And this is one of the southeastern coastal structures that needs to be rebuilt, right? It's old. You can see its wing walls need to be replaced. It needs to be raised. It needs to be hardened and modernized. So this is a structure that we need to rebuild, but at the same time, we need to add a pump station to it, right? Because it cannot opened at high tide these days. And so to provide adequate level of service flood control, we need to add a pump station. Each of those pump stations we're targeting is at least $200 million to build one of those pump stations. These are not cheap infrastructure projects. So we're having to address all the old infrastructure and retrofit infrastructure at the same time. So the focus that we're having is to take that $419 million, you take out $200 million on personnel essentially, and then you take the rest and you try to squeeze as much out of that as you can to address those issues. And this is that budget over time. We call it capital. It's our capital O&M budget, and it's capital infrastructure. And so you can see it's been flat for many years. And recently, this is the conversation we've been having with the state. They came forward one year, and then we've been having that conversation ever since. I think we need to start looking at how to address this situation ourselves to get us in a better position on it. So this year, as we're building the 26-27 budget, we are taking a hard look at all the things we're doing, making sure we're doing exactly and what we need to do, and not doing things we don't necessarily need to do that maybe other agencies can take care of, and put that into this capital O&M budget. We don't know the whole price tag of rebuilding it. I know the floor is $3 billion, right, to rebuild and adapt that entire flood control system. I think that is not the actual cost. It's probably higher than that. We can't do it all at once. We're not going to do it all at once. So this is like a recurring amount we need to get to. And so over the next few years, as we build our budget out, I am looking at doing everything I can to grow that budget. You can see we've been doing it in the recent years as we've been able to go with continuation on our ad valorem. And with continuation next year, we can get it up another, up to, we're projecting, $96 million per year, which is better than we've been. But that's taking a lot of decisions. I am personally involved in all those decisions. But that's going to be our focus going from is operating all the new incredible infrastructure we have, making sure we can continue to provide that core mission that you see in front of you, but grow this pot as much as possible to deal with that old infrastructure. So I don't want to end on a dour note, so I'm not going to do that. What I want to do is really talk about the fact that we do still have the opportunity to improve our infrastructure through the ecosystem restoration side. And I call it ecosystem restoration, but it's growing a water supply pie with the new reservoirs coming online. It's growing resiliency on our system with the ability to deal with droughts and floodwaters and all those types of things. It is a incredible effort, and that will not stop. As we continue to focus on the capital O&M budget, that effort will not stop for South Florida ecosystem restoration. For example, we will finish within the next year these L28 culverts to help move water west out of the Central Everglades into Big Cypress and Lossman Slough. This will come online. We will begin to build our US 41 culverts west of L28 to get water towards Lossman Slough underneath Tamiami Trail. We will continue to build out our Okeechobee restoration with the aquifer storage and recovery wells. We will have, because we need it for operations, we will have the new Clewiston Field Station built so we can actually have the capacity to operate and maintain all those new stormwater treatment areas, the EAA reservoir and the C43 reservoir. And we will, of course, start construction of the seepage pump station on the EAA reservoir while we continue the inflow pump station. We will continue construction of the Blue Shanty Flowway. We will start the remaining features of the Blue Shanty Flowway. We will continue construction on Northern Everglades and estuaries protection projects, for Lake Hicpochee being an example, and other dispersed water management projects. We have a new, it's like 4,000 acre, the Lower Kissimmee Stormwater Treatment Area to treat water coming from the Kissimmee River and that basin into Lake Okeechobee. And of course, we will continue to focus on the northern above ground storage north of Lake Okeechobee as we continue to look at Indian River Lagoon South, Loxahatchee, all these other CERT projects that are in the wings as well. So we've gotten a lot done over the 8 years, and the thing that means the most to everybody is that it's making a difference, right? And here we have the current operations in the center of Central Everglades, moving water through Everglades National Park into Florida Bay. The infrastructure is working. And then with the EAA reservoir and SEP complete, on the right side, you'll see like a completed river of grass all the way from the top of 3A all the way to the bottom of Florida Bay. And that's in that 3-year time frame that the governor's been fighting for. And of course, we have seen an incredible reduction of the harmful discharges from Lake Okeechobee. We have not had a lost summer since we've been here, and that's very exciting, and we're very proud of that. So that's how I wanted to conclude it's like we've got challenges before us, but we've also get to rest on a lot, not rest, observe a lot of success that we've had as well. That's all I have for you, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
So what I'd like to do now is, this is not a voting item, by the way, this is a discussion item. I'd like to see if there's public comment, then I'd like to have a discussion with my colleagues and Mr. Bartlett. Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have no public comment on this item.
Thank you. Now jump into discussion. Drew, thanks very much for bringing this and teeing this up for us. It's, I mean, from my perspective, our job is flood control. And I won't support a budget that puts anyone in harm's way. And I don't think you'd bring to us a budget that does that. And we certainly have some maintenance. You've got your C3s, I guess, and C4s that you've identified as critical. And we have to do them. So that's sort of my first going in position, is that anything we do needs to take care of that first. Because that's our job, is to keep people safe. And we're going to continue to do that. And then looking at the history of this organization, you've got like 15 years flat with FTEs. We've got, I don't know, Candy, how many decades have we been in rollback or continuation? Like 2 decades? I'm sorry, not ish. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. Rolled back since about 2011, 2012 time frame until 2024.
And then were we in continuation before that?
And then continuation, we were in continuation before that. And
so for the last couple decades, we
Yes.
have not raised any ad valorem.
Correct. 29 years we have
Okay,
not.
29 years. Okay. So that's a long time. I bet, and I bet someone could do this for me, because there's a lot of summer interns out there with Claude and ChatGPT and other things. I bet there's not another state agency or governmental entity in the state of Florida that's done that. That's just a challenge to find out if there is, but I'd be fascinated to know. So anyone who's bored, look that up and let us know, because it would be interesting. You know, my perspective on budgeting is maybe a little bit different than some of yours, because I've been doing this for the last, not too long, quarter century. And, you know, all the money comes from the same place, and it's the taxpayer. And what we do is we put it in different buckets. We say, well, it's the federal taxpayer, which is all of us, or it's the state taxpayer, which is all of us, or it's the South Florida taxpayer, which is just us living in South Florida. So it doesn't really matter what bucket it is. It's coming from the taxpayer. We don't make things. You know, we're not a widget maker. We're not selling stuff. This money has to come from somewhere. It's just like any good infrastructure project does, that any public entity does. So we have to pay for this, and we've got new infrastructure coming online. And we've got old infrastructure that needs to be maintained. So those two things are coming up against a flat budget and flat FTEs, and something's got to give. And what has given over the last decade or so is the legislature has been fantastic in helping to augment that and fill some of those holes. And if that doesn't happen in the future, or if that didn't happen this year, then we're going to have holes that we have to fill. And fortunately, our staff is very professional, and they've started a cuts drill, and they've done it very professionally, and they're looking at our full budget, and they're not pulling their hair out and screaming. They're doing it in a very, very skillful manner to make sure that we can do what we have to do for the people of South Florida, because we have an obligation, we have statutory obligations to do that, and we're going to. So Drew, I thank you and your senior staff for doing that, and that really gets us to where we are. And I also want to put a point on something you said earlier, which is this has nothing to do with the constitutional amendment. This is our budget this year. This is not next year. We're not talking about that at all. So right now, this is where we are, and it'd be interesting to hear sort of my colleagues' views on the budget and what they think we should, or how we should proceed as we go forward. And if Mr. Bergeron or Mr. Spotswood, who are sitting here, want to say anything, or if anyone online wants to say anything, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you,
Mr. Spotswood.
Yeah, I'll reiterate your comments about the importance of the flood control aspect of what we do. And I know that Drew and the team has been working really hard to figure out how to get additional dollars in the capital O&M budget. You know, but as you look at the chart a few pages before, it still seems like we need more. And I know that's a big ask. It asks the legislature, it asks to us to continue to try and figure out cuts, but this is an issue regardless of where the funding source comes from. We need more of it. And I think that's something that is pretty apparent, and all of us will continue to try and work towards. So, you know, that would be my focus in going through this budget process. How are we getting ahead? I also imagine there's some benefits coming out of what we're doing now with electrical motors, as opposed to some of the old diesel engines that required more repair, had more moving parts. So I'd also like to think through that a little bit in terms of what does this mean and the impacts going forward. But you know, just looking at the sheet, we could be spending a couple $100 million a year on O&M, and that probably wouldn't be overspending. So a lot of room there for us to grow on that, and you know, look forward to continuing to work with you on that, Drew.
Thanks, Mr. Spotswood. Mr. Bergeron?
Well, I think it's, you know, obviously our three major responsibilities is water supply and flood protection and Everglades restoration. All of them equally important. I think the future with sea rise is what we have to address. I think we, over a long period of time, have been able to provide excellent flood protection and water supply. But into the future with sea rise, we have to make an awful lot of improvements. A lot of our system was designed with gravity flow. We know that as sea rises that we have to change our infrastructure in order to provide flood protection. And I think that's the leadership of getting out ahead of this is so important. And also, a lot of our infrastructure, as we've said earlier, is old and needs to be upgraded to continue flood protection. Extremely important. And also the Everglades restoration, as we continue to go forward with, I've heard several comments about more water. We got plenty of water. We just got to get it going in the right direction, because we are flooding our rivers with quantities greater than natural, and we have seagrass dying in Florida Bay from lack of water. So as we continue to go forward with Everglades restoration, I think we can accomplish all of this, so we have a quality of life in Florida. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Does anyone online have any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Tom Hurley. I want to echo Mr. Spotswood's comments about the need for really keeping the O&M kind of at the front of our thoughts. Obviously, Everglades restoration is what gets the headlines, and it's some really important work, but it only matters when it comes to flood control. And I just hope that we continue to reemphasize the importance of maintaining that, because it's one of those things that probably doesn't get a lot of public notice until it goes wrong. And I think it's our responsibility as a board to make sure we're thinking, getting ahead of the curve on any potential problems. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. I appreciate that.
This is Charlotte, if I could.
Go ahead,
speak,
Colonel.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here that we could look at. First of all, water is at the top of the public's mind. That has not gone away, and some of the reports or news on data centers and their impact on water has only heightened the public's awareness of how important water is, particularly on water supply and water quality. But, the first time we get a hurricane headed towards Florida, towards South Florida, flood protection, will take the lead. But all in all, the public's awareness of water issues, I think, is still front and center. It hasn't gone away. And so that's one of the points that I wanted to make. The second thing is, O&M is just not sexy. That is not, that's a hard sell. It's really exciting to bring a new project online, right? Or to complete a project, but it's more challenging once that's done and the ribbon is cut to say, oh, we need to mow the grass, we need to maintain the levee, and oh, we need to replace the engine parts, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. And if there's new technology there, modernization costs money to make it more efficient and effective, so that's a cost there. So Drew has done a terrific job trying to sell this message of you got to maintain and protect your investment once it comes online. And 77-year-old some replacement parts. But, maybe we just need to put our heads together and be creative, because I think this is an important message. But we haven't just in every year been able to move the needle on the budget in this regard. So it's a challenge for all of us. And Drew has done a heroic job trying to send the message. And but I think it still needs some work, and maybe the timing's right with the public so aware of the importance of water. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Congressman. Mr. Spotswood?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to kind of follow up on that, Drew, I made my comments in the context of flood protection. But when you talk about that $3 billion plus of infrastructure, how important is that infrastructure to the other missions of water quality and Everglades restoration?
It's all part of the water management system, right? So wherever you are in the water management system, we have those aging infrastructure, whether it's up in the upper Kissimmee Chain of Lakes or down in South Miami. It's throughout the whole thing. So it's kind of just the whole water management system. So it's what we need to make sure it works, to get it to reservoirs, to get it to STAs, right? To get it where it needs to go. So it's SERP was just a retrofit of the water management system. So if an aging water management system doesn't work, it won't work with SERP, right? So it's just all part of one big water management system. Just part of it is really old.
Yeah, thank you. And somewhat of a rhetorical question, but I wanted the general public to hear that, right? This infrastructure is what allows us to meet all of our goals, and is really, really important at its core. Thank you.
So what I think I heard you, maybe you didn't say this, but what I heard was we're probably not going to be able to cut our way out of this, but we can certainly shift our way out of this. And as we go forward, that seems to be the consensus of what I've heard, is that this is a priority. This is something we need to focus on. And I think what Mr. Spotswood mentioned on new technologies, whether it's electric, I know we can't use it for flood control, but we can certainly use it other places. I saw that U.S. Sugar's now using autonomous tractors. I mean, mowing's a huge cost for us. That might be something that we look at. Maybe we're not ready for that yet, but eventually there are ways that we're going to be able to use. I think the newer economy, the newer AI economy as we go forward. So I applaud you for what you're doing now. I know you're not looking for a decision. I don't know if you're looking for direction or just discussion, but I think that we're all sort of on the same page.
I appreciate that.
Does anyone else have anything? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Got Mr. Mitnick and Dr. Welch.
All right, morning everyone. So Zach is sitting in for Cassandra this morning. So together we'll run through the water conditions and ecological conditions report. So starting off at looking back at the month of June, you can see there was a deficit of rainfall over the month as compared to what we usually get. So far this month in July, we've had a decent amount of rain over the last week or so, and I can talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But generally speaking, like I said, over the last 7 days, we've had a fair amount of rain, above average in most of the basins across the district so far for the month of July. But for the wet season over here on the right-hand side, you can still see that we're still just slightly below average or below normal overall since the wet season started about 2 months ago. Looking up at the upper chain of lakes, with some of those recent rains that you see right here, East Lake as well as West Lake, they're starting to come back up from their summer pools. So they're getting some inflows. They haven't started releasing that water yet because we're still well below their regulation schedules. But those lakes are starting to rise. As a result, Lake Kissimmee over here has been relatively flat, just being maintained by that rainfall up here above in the local basin across the three lakes, Kissimmee, Cypress, and Hatchinaha. And right now we're continuing operations to release about 150 cubic feet per second down the river, commensurate with the Headwaters interim schedule here. And with that, Zach will talk about the Kissimmee River floodplain.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So as John mentioned, the lakes upstream have not started discharging. They're not at their summer pools yet, regulation schedule, so we don't have much flows coming down the Kissimmee River yet. So we'll kind of see that late wet season operation or condition throughout the system that I talked about. So the result is we don't have any change in water depths on the Kissimmee River, still very dry on the floodplain. Water has been within the channel since about October, November last year. So you can see the flow up in the upper left graphic has been below that dashed orange line and in the orange bar, which means it's confined to the river channel, not inundating the floodplain. And it's been that way for quite some time and continues. We do see a little bit of decline in dissolved oxygen in the bottom right graphic, still plenty of DO, not in regions of concern, but with the really high temperatures and the minimal flows that are now about 150 CFS, it's a little stagnant, so it's not unusual to see those DO conditions decline just a little bit.
So then looking at how water has moved around the northern portion of the system, you can see right here, very little, I would almost say hardly any, inflows to Lake Okeechobee in comparison to what we're used to seeing this time of year, sitting here in the middle of July. So a little bit less than 29,000 acre feet has come into Lake Okeechobee. No water has left the C44 basin going to the St. Lucie estuary. Very small amount of water from C23, 24 going to the estuary, and a little bit more, just over 11,000 acre feet has come out of C25 basin to the Indian River Lagoon up around Fort Pierce. Over on the west coast, going to the Clusatchee estuary, they have been experiencing some runoff, especially within the last 7 days. I think 2 days ago, flows at S79 were over 1,500 CFS. I know at one point yesterday they were over 2,200 CFS, but that rapidly came down. So overall, about 54,000 acre feet in total have been moved to the Clusatchee since the start of the water year 2 months ago, with just a little less than 20,000 acre feet of that having originated back in Lake Okeechobee. So the first thing I'll point out on this projection, you'll see up here at the top, it's dated June 15th. So Drew the Benevolent did not make staff work through the holiday weekend to update these projections. But we do run a mid-month projection, so this is the mid-month from June, so it's about a little bit more than 2.5 weeks ago. However, you can see it was initialized there right around 11 feet. As of today, the lake is at 11 feet. So it's pretty much the same elevation it was when this projection was run. This projection called for a little dip and then a little rise. So right now we're following pretty much that 50% line, that 50th percentile here on this projection. So we just decided to run with this projection as opposed to, like I said, making staff work over the holiday and come up with a new projection. But they are back in the office this week. So we are updating the projection, and we will have the July projection updated and on our website here shortly for everybody to go view. A couple other things to note. With the lake being at the 11 feet right now, we are about a 1/4 foot into the water shortage management band. Drew touched on that earlier. You can see as we exit the wet season, the projection somewhere around here of November 1 is about 13 feet, which is roughly a foot less than where we had exited the wet season last year. Again, that big difference is this tail, whereas last year that tail started declining. This year it's maintaining, at least for now, based on the El Nino and the wetter conditions that are projected going through the dry season. We can talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But looking at the 4 panels, you can see the difference from just June 1 projection there at the 50th% line down to the June 15th, how it declined and it decreased, because the beginning part of June there was a lot drier than what it was originally thought to have been. Something we're going to continue to keep an eye on. We're in the wet season right now, but it's mainly about that tail out here and what happens once we get to the dry season and the effects of El Nino on South Florida.
As we heard, very little inflows to Lake Okeechobee in the last month. You can see only about 11,000 acre feet, and compared to the rainfall, which was about 180,000 acre feet, it's really minimal. About 160,000 acre feet left in ET, which is why we don't really see much change in lake stage right now. And you can see the distribution of those inflows and outflows, showing that we got a little rainfall in the last week and the flows south declined, and we've had really pretty stagnant inflows for quite some time now. The lake level, as we heard, is about 11 feet. That puts us below now where we were last year and also in the 2019 timeframe, the last time that recovery operations were implemented, or something similar to those operations following Hurricane Irma impacts. The lake marsh is still really dry. We did finish our wading bird foraging surveys for this season. Throughout the season, even though the lake has been really dry compared to normal, we saw really high wading bird numbers, not necessarily great nesting numbers, but really good foraging numbers, and that's because when there's regional drought, the lake is a deep water refuge and really provides some of the best foraging habitat in the system, so we continue to see high use of that, despite the entire marsh essentially being dry. So they're aggregated out on the outsides of those marsh and open water interface. We do have some preliminary nesting numbers. These are right kind of in line with 2019, 2020, which again was the last time we had similar lake stages during the breeding season. So we were pleasantly not surprised because they're pretty similar, but we thought we might come under those numbers even. We had a late season push around some of the spoil islands and things and got the numbers up a bit. So below the 10-year average, but considering the conditions, we're pleasantly surprised with that. Looking at water quality in the lake, the top graphic is chlorophyll. See, not a lot of change there, but some uptick in that last little dot there for the last month, the last 2-week survey anyway. And then the DIN, the dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which the algae really consume quickly. You can see big drops in that, precipitous drops, which means we do have some elevated bloom activity on the lake. Or periphyton and things on the SAV taking that up, but because of the drop in the pelagic zone, which is in yellow, we know the chlorophyll activity is picking up there, which we'll see on images in a second. And the big reason for that is probably this decline in turbidity too. We've really hit the doldrums of the summer, very still conditions on the lake, and the temperatures can get really high and the algae can float to the surface and take advantage of those conditions. So since about late June, we've started to see some increases. These aren't really rapid, really widespread, high density blooms. They're still visible to the human eye. They still can have some toxin concentrations in them, but we kind of see differences between what you see up here and the top. It's this, I call it a smoother pixelation versus this bumpier condition out in the pelagic. This is not scientific, but after looking at a lot of these tend to be more of the microcystis blooms out in the pelagic, and they clump a little more, and so you kind of pick that up in the pixels. And we have some different species that tend to aggregate in these northeast shoreline areas, which also tend to have less toxicity. So the last data we have for those toxins and community analyses was the late June sample. So the purple boxes or the pink boxes show where we had detections for toxins. Those could be Cylindrus rhamopsin, they could be microcystin. The Cylindrus rhamopsin are the low values, the 0.1s over here. You can see even at, say, Palmount 3, which is this sample here, we had 73 micrograms per liter chlorophyll, and our bloom threshold's around 40. So this is a really significant chlorophyll bloom, but no toxicity, despite the fact that that was still microcystis bloom. If you look at some of these other stations up here in this, as I call, little smoother pixelation, L001, that's a Raphidiopsis planktolymbia, Kissimmee or Kings Bar Southeast, again, not microcystis dominated. And you go out here to L004, you see microcystis, and you see the toxicity come up a little bit. 8 micrograms per liter is the EPA recommended limit for microcystin. It's 15 for Cylindrus rhamopsin, so we're well below that in all the places except for over here at S308, where we had some very small localized bloom at the structure that we've treated at least twice. I wanted to give an update on SAV while I got to be in front of you guys today. We do the annual, I think I heard Mr. Butler talk about the annual numbers he was looking forward to seeing. We start those in August, so we give that a little later in the fall, but we do have transects that we set up, about 20 of them on the shorelines, where we actually measure biomass and stem height. And looking at those over time, it's a little bit of information here to take in on this graphic, but these are biomasses on the y-axis, and then the x-axis is elevation. So lower elevation is deeper water. And so what you can see here is kind of where the peak of these biomasses have occurred over time. But what we've been doing is comparing current conditions to 2019, 2020, because again, that was when we had those drier conditions similar to this year. 2019, we just started to see some rebounds after Hurricane Irma and high water levels, and then that took off in 2020. Had some gradual declines over time as stages are up to 16 feet, and we essentially by 22 aren't seeing much recruitment, more just these mature communities. And then of course Hurricane Milton and things knocked us down. But here's the good news, 2026, you see really big increases in biomass. We have some really mature Vallisneria beds and other species, southern naiad and things. I do want to point out that this is 11 feet in elevation, and you heard that we're just under 11 feet or right at 11 feet in stage. So these areas, despite pretty high biomasses early on, are dried out at the moment. We've seen that in the past, and they do tend to come back. It kind of depends on how long they're dry and whether they can compete with some of those emergent species like spike rush. But we think those will do well as long as we get some water coming up here in the next month. So moving on to the estuaries, starting over on the St. Lucie. The daily mean flows for the last week are about 700 CFS, most of that coming from the tidal basin. The top graph shows how those flows are distributed over the past few months. You can see that rainfall event over the July 4th weekend John was talking about, pretty big change in inflows to the St. Lucie. No lake inflows, of course, for quite some time now. We do see just a little bit of change in the salinity compared to a month ago, actually a slight increase. The only place you can really see that is in the light blue on the North Fork. It's pushed up a little bit, and then a slight change in the teal color moving back a little farther into the middle estuary. But at the US 1 bridge, the water column salinities are still well within the optimal range for adult oysters. Looking at oyster recruitment from FWC numbers, you can see a nice increase this past survey. The spawning season runs from around April, May into the fall, and so we're seeing a nice uptick here. Again, the conditions, salinity conditions in gray here have been optimal through this period, so we're seeing some nice spat recruitment. Actual oyster densities, which are done on a quarterly basis, the last 3 samples have been really good, up about around 500 oysters per square meter. So we're pleased with those numbers. Everything's looking good oyster-wise in the St. Lucie. Moving to the Caloosahatchee, here's that big rain increase John talked about. You can see most of that was C43 basin, a little bit less from Tidal Basin. Average for the last week about 925 CFS daily. No real change in salinities though. Everything looks about the same as it did a month ago. As far as salinity conditions for oysters, you can see the downstream sites, or the Shell Point and Sanibel rather, are still in the stress range, but the Cape Coral area has been in the optimal range for adult oysters for some time. Looking at recruitment here, again, we saw a little bit of an uptick in the Iona Cove site. Again, this is the area where we've had optimal conditions. In gray, you can see the salinities. So a good start to the season there. A little bit of a decrease down at the Bird Island, but nothing concerning. These are still good numbers, and we hope to see them increase as we get slightly higher flows as the wet season hopefully progresses. I do want to point out, when we have higher salinities like we do here down at Bird Island, that tends to favor the diseases and predation on the oysters, and so we need some of these higher freshwater flows to kind of give them a little break and increase survival. So we hope to see some better flows as we move through July. As for densities, really good numbers still. We actually saw increases in both of the sites, probably also capturing some of that spat now on the shells and some of their survival, so good numbers here. And then just looking quickly at the MFL, again, it's 457 for a 30-day moving average shown in this dashed orange line, and we're moving towards that. I'm not sure if we're above it in the last couple of days, but as of putting this together, we were right near that line, and so we should see continued improvements there. And then as far as salinities relative to tape grass, again, downstream site, 2 saline has been for some time in the damaging range, but the upstream site's still in the optimal.
So then for the southern portion of the system, you can see there hasn't been a whole lot of inflows into the conservation areas, just about 25,000 acre feet from the north. Has been some pumping over there coming from western Broward County, moving that water into Area 3A, and then a little bit of inflow just from the western basins over here. Most of the rainfall has been along the lower East Coast. You can see 222,000 acre feet of runoff from the urban areas coming down from Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, going to the intercoastal Biscayne Bay areas. That's been the majority of the rains over the last 7 days, and that's why that number is much higher than all the other numbers when you look at this column here. It's just, again, from the last 7 days and the rainfalls in the month of July that has increased the amount of runoff on the urbanized areas. So then looking at the stormwater treatment areas, because of that lack of rainfall until just recently, there's only been about 36,000 acre feet that have been processed and treated through the stormwater treatment areas going into the conservation areas. And you'll see that reflected on the next graphic that Zach will describe, especially when it comes to STA 5.6. There's been hardly any inflows into STA 5.6.
Yeah, so that 36,000 acre feet, I'm not familiar as much as, how that is relative to what we've seen recently. So staff showed me a graph, just looking at the May to July period over the last 10 years, the average is about 270,000 acre feet. So 36,000 is obviously a very small percentage of that. So really dry compared to what we normally get. As far as the distribution of those flows, about 11,000 acre feet in STA 2 and 3-4, the rest much less than that. The water depths are pretty good across the region as far as being at their target ranges. So, they're ready to go for the wet season pulse when it comes. There's still some data QA/QC going on for STA 1 West because of some auto sampler issues. That should be totally cleared up and ready to present when Cassandra returns in August. And then, as John said, no real meaningful flow for evaluation in STA 5.6, our driest STA. These are the water depths in the different regions. You can see a lot of that totally dry, water below the surface in STA 5.6, except for those northern flowways. And I just wanted to point out there's still a couple areas where the cells are offline, which is in STA 1 West, the eastern flowway, you can see outlined in red, and then in STA 1 East, the central flowway. Recall that's where we did earthwork to level it out, and so they're hydrated, the cells are, but we're not moving water through there for treatment yet while we get those cells established. Okay, moving to the Everglades. We did see some rainfall, so we saw some improvements in water depths. You can see from the June 5th to July 5th map, much more blue, especially in the Northeast Shark River Slough area. So we have some connectivity there now down to the bay, and that's good news. We see southern 3A get wetter. Water is above surface now. Obviously still dry in the northern part of 3A, and you can see increased depths in 2A as well. If we look at relative to the 20-year recent history, we're still really low. Again, with a late start to the wet season, we're going to be behind where we would be normally in the last 20 years. So still below the 10th percentile in Big Cypress and 3A, but looking a little better in 1A and 2A, or Conservation Area 1 and 2A, up about the 30th percentile. If we look at individual gauges of interest, starting up at Site 7 and Water Conservation Area 1, you can see we've been bouncing around a little bit, a quarter to a half a foot for the last couple months, and just see a little increase there up near around the 25th percentile now. Similar at Site F4 and Water Conservation Area 2A. We are happy to see water levels increasing there over the last week, so that's good news, up near the 25th percentile. And the same for Southern Conservation Area 2A. As far as 3A, you saw there's still dry conditions in the north. So Site 63, we actually lost the gauge. Water was below, the gauge. We weren't able to get any readings on that for a couple months, but we see water there now again, still below surface, but it's at least within the gauge range. Increases at Site 64 brought water above ground again. It's gone up and down a few times, as you can see. The approximate ground elevation is that horizontal gray bar in each of the graphics. And then Southern Conservation Area 3A, we do see increases above ground there, and still well below the 10th percentile, but at least some water on the marsh. We do hope to see increases here, obviously, because the longer it takes to hydrate those marshes, the less time we have for good prey production for wading birds next season. So already not really expecting, banner year, obviously, next season, but we'd like to see the marsh, more of the marsh inundated and get that prey production going as soon as possible. Moving to Florida Bay and Taylor Slough, stages came up a little bit in Taylor Slough, just about a quarter foot on average. Water levels there are still obviously a little lower for this time of year by about 3 inches. We did see some increases in the bay-wide average salinity, and in the central and western regions, we're above the hypersalinity threshold, so above 40. But you can see this time of year in this shaded interquartile ranges. This, obviously, depending on the wet season, we could be, big changes. These are based on monthly averages, so you can see a big drop in these regions in the interquartile ranges, and we're just a little behind in the wet season right now, so we hope to see the corner turn there. As long as the wet season progresses as it should, we're not too worried about the high temperatures and some of these really high salinities up to about 50 in the western region, because we're expecting some relief soon. We just hope it comes.
All right, so taking a little bit closer look at the water conservation areas up here in the upper right-hand side, Conservation Area 1 has just been, I'd say, relatively steady over the last month or so. Got some direct rainfall. There hasn't been really any inflows or any outflows to speak of out of Area 1. It's just being maintained by that direct rainfall over the last month or so. Area 2, you'll recall last month I had talked about the Corps had started opening up some of the S11 structures to move some of that water out of Area 2 down into Area 3, and that's that big drop you see here in the green line. Got down to right about the floor, so backed off of those operations, and the Water Management District continued to move some water out of Area 2, backflowing through S7 and running it across and trying to get it in over the the northwest portion of Area 3A. But with those closures of the S11, you can see the rebound in levels as water began to equalize across the conservation area. But then, as I've said a couple different times already, that direct rainfall during the last 7 days since the beginning of July is really what has caused this little jump up right here. So we'll be talking with the Corps this week and into next about the best way to manage that pool of water, keeping it there in 2A or start moving a little bit more down into 3A, because as we look at 3A, it is getting also that direct rainfall. So you see its elevation starting to come up very slowly. So like I said, we'll be discussing with the Corps of Engineers the operations of 2A and 3A combined as we look to manage the overall system and the pool of water that we have. Because as we look forward in time, and this is what we've been saying for a while now. Right now, there's the equal chances here for July and into September. Then once you get out into the dry season, as you go from October around to April, we're still forecasting that very strong El Nino and having above normal rainfall throughout the dry season. So that's the conversation right now and what those forecasts look like and what we can reasonably expect for the future as we look to manage the overall water resources and sustain us around through that dry season. But for the next at least 2 weeks, starting today and going into this weekend, there's some Saharan dust that is coming across the Atlantic right now. You'll notice it tonight, but I think the peak of it is actually Saturday. So there should be some pretty magnificent sunsets this weekend as that dust layer settles in over Florida and you get that nice orange glow towards the late afternoon hours. But as far as rainfall, that has an effect of suppressing rainfall. So we're looking at probably below average rainfall over the next 2 weeks. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you both. Does there anyone have any comments or questions? Ms. Bergeron.
So as far as the environment's concerned, we've had a pretty good dry season. I think the environment's done well. I know that there's been a lot of fires in the Everglades, which fortunately there was enough moisture in the muck, in the decayed vegetation, where we didn't have muck fires, which would be damaging. But I think overall we finally got a dry season from the standpoint of benefiting the environment. And I hope as we go into the future, we understand as we're moving water south to Florida Bay, that we keep in mind that it's important that we have a dry season and a wet season to have a healthy environment. I think the EAA reservoir can secure water supply and available water moving south in unusual dry seasons. So I think that's in the future is not only for water supply and minimizing the discharges out to Caloosahatchee, St. Lucie, to quantity of water compatible with our estuaries, and the EAA reservoir is going to be our kind of a safety point. I hope we get to the point when the EAA reservoir is completed. We're minimizing the destructive discharges in quantity of water greater than natural going into the Gulf of America and the Atlantic, benefiting our rivers and our estuaries, and having for water supply as well as compatible water moving south to Florida Bay. matching the inflows to the outflows. And I got to say, I'm pretty excited. We've made a lot of progress over 25 years. And we're on the verge of getting a lot of benefits in a very short time frame here. Seeing that what we've been doing for 25 years, we're able to get the benefit of what we've already built. So it's pretty exciting times. I hope that when we get to that point, that the water that flows into Area 1 and into Area 2A and 2B and into 3A, South and North, and 3B, that we're able to match the inflows to the outflows, where we don't have cumulative backups that are very impactful to our wildlife and our God's landscaping, and stops seagrass from dying in Florida Bay. So I think we're on a very good path, and we're going to start getting a lot of benefits from what we have built over the past 25 years.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Anyone else? Thank you both.
Mr. Chair, just
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, it's Jay.
Yep.
Just a question, John, on page on page 33. Because we always talk about it this time of year. Is that 33? Sorry. Yes. So where are we? Can you give us a reminder of where we are on the operational flexibility on the 12s, on the S12s? I mean, I'm just, I'm wondering, because in the past, obviously, you know, we've always had, we have sometimes had water availability in 3 and oftentimes pooling at the southern end of the system that everybody always talks about. And we have the closure rules. Are we, is the district and in partnership with the Corps able to continue to operate with flexibility on the S12s? And are the water conditions right now supportive of moving water south? I'm asking in the context of the salinity levels that we just heard about in Florida Bay, which you know might be within range, but the way I see them, at least on a short term, is they are approaching the high mark of the past couple of years. So anything we can do to mitigate that in advance. But where are we on the S12s?
So right now, flows out of Area 3A down into the park are dictated by the Tamiami Trail flow formula. So right now, it's a weekly calculation. Right for this week, it calls for about 402 cubic feet per second to move out of Area 3 down into the park. That is increased from the week before. So it's a part of that formula is rainfall driven. So these rains that over the last 7 days have increased the amount that should be moving out of Area 3A into the park. And we are more than able to meet that amount of flow just using the S333 and the 333 North structures combined with 12C and 12D right here. So we're more than capable of moving that water from Area 3 down into the park. As we've talked about in prior meetings, the Corps has been processing and the deviation to bring in that flexibility that you're talking about. And unfortunately, I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say the deviation is complete, but I need to verify. Okay, Drew checked me. The deviation has been approved, so we do have that operational flexibility when it comes to the operations of 12A and 12B. Should it be required if Area 3A levels have increased due to future rainfall? But as I said, right now, we're more than able to manage the amount of flow just using 12CD and the 333 structures right in here.
Terrific. Thanks for clarifying.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, we'll move now to Ms. Heater, with our monthly financial report.
Good morning. The monthly financial report that's in your packets and that is posted on our web is through May 31st. So through May 31st, we've collected $905 million in new revenue, and we have expended $771 million. From April last month to May, or the last month that I had reported on, to May, we collected $39 million of additional revenue, $6 million in ad valorem, $29 million in intergovernmental, and $4 million in investment earnings. If you recall, in April we had a very large month of collection. It was over $140 million. The revenue collected thus far out of the $905 million, your largest revenues being $468 million from intergovernmental and $393 million from ad valorem. The ad valorem collections are 97% through the month of May. We're about 46.3% of collections of revenue. Your recurring revenues, though, which is important, recurring revenues cover your recurring expenses, we're at 93%. So the difference, in the intergovernmental is based on expenditure. Authorities in your budget, you spend, you get reimbursed. Average collection is about $96 million per month. Expenditures, the $771 million of expenditures, about $37 million or 5% in science, water supply planning, $17 million for regulatory or 2%, $682 million or 89% for Everglades O&M and land management, and then $34 million or 4% for administration and outreach. On average, we're spending about $98 million per month. And we're 73% obligated. So we are pretty much in line with prior years of comparison at this point in time through May. And that concludes my report.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Ms. Heater? Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.
We'll move now to general public comment.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
We will move now to final board comment. Mr. Bergeron?
Well, happy birthday, America. How blessed are we to be in this best country in the world. And just want to say it's an honor to work with our staff and all our people and my fellow board members. And I think we're heading in the right direction. So we have quality of life in Florida, and we have jobs and economical growth in the right areas planned, and we have our Everglades and the beautiful Gulf of America and the Atlantic, Florida Bay, Biscayne Bay, 10,000 islands. And it's an honor to serve the people in South Florida in 18 counties. So honored to sit with all of you. So happy birthday, America.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Spotswood.
Thanks for that, Ron. Just to add to that long list, Florida Keys and Dry Tortugas National Park, all the way down south. We are at the bottom end of the system, but really appreciate and pay attention to what's going on up north. We're seeing the benefits down there. So thank you. Thank you, staff, for a great meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Spot. Mr. Butler.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things to wrap up here. To begin with, Mr. Steinley, in your opening comments today, thank you for sharing your recent meetings with us, with staff, working on the district's invasive plant management program. Man, your comments were great, and I thank you again for sharing that. And Drew, thank you to you and your staff for continuing to be a leader when it comes to dealing with invasive plants management and herbicide use. That I believe that's 40% reduction over recent years in pounds per acre. That's good. You're on the right track. Let's keep it up. And then also, I got pulled away briefly there at the very end of our budget discussion. But Mr. Chair, thank you for framing that discussion. Your budget background is certainly, I look towards you, and I thought you framed that out very well, or where we are right now with our district budget. Drew, thank you for personally taking personally being involved in every aspect as we work through our budget. It is, I think that these are difficult discussions. I think it is very healthy for government to have these discussions. And so again, thank you. And I think that I echo my other board members' comments. We are on the right direction here. But we've got our core priorities that we must maintain, and we've got to respect the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo a little bit of what Ben had said. I'm really grateful that you are our chairman as we head into, in the coming 2 or 3 years of probably some pretty challenging budget discussions. So having someone with your background and expertise, I think, is going to be well served, as well as having, the rest of the board besides Mr. Spotswood and I that have been here for a good long while. So I think we're going to really lean on your experience as we try to allocate, the precious resources that are going to be available to us. So thank you for that, and happy birthday, America.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Martinez.
No more comments, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Martinez. Colonel Roman.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steinle.
Appreciate everybody's comments and work and budget support. Amazing. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I have really no further comment except to say thanks to staff. Happy birthday, America. And I'll look forward to seeing everyone back here on Thursday, August 13th at 9 o'clock.